On today's show, it is part 2 of 2 with myself and Brian Schroeder talking all things 2025 NBA draft here in mid-January, and we'll get into all that right now.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1886 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Sunday evening into Monday, and today's show is sponsored by the folks at GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNBA, $40 off your first purchase. Terms apply. I also want to encourage you at the top of the show, as I always do, honestly, to make us your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Hawks. Check us out and subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify. We're also on YouTube. Please like this video as you're watching it on that platform, and be sure to tell your friends about the podcast. If you missed it, part 1 of this conversation with myself and Brian Schroeder is available right now on the same podcast feed, but I recommend you start with part 1 to have this conversation kind of flow in linear fashion. This is part 2 that you're about to listen to right now on the NBA draft. We record this over the weekend, and we'll be diving in now to the rest of the NBA draft talk. Honestly, of course, plenty more to get to. We can't cover it all in one basically hour of discussions with myself and Brian, but there's more to come. I promise you. During the season, try to be a little bit more sparing with draft stuff, but still more to come. And if you missed this in previous years, I always dive headfirst into the draft as soon as the Hawk season is over. So stay tuned for that as well. All right, please subscribe to the podcast, tell your friends, and here we go with part 2 with myself and Brian. I want to dive into some centers because of one reason. Hawks fans, and I understand why, they don't really have potentially their long-term answer. Maybe it's a Kongwu, but maybe not. At center, they have Capella and Nance are expiring contracts. I get a lot of questions, Brian, about centers, like a lot of questions. And it runs the gamut. I will just name the guys I get asked about real quick in no order. I think Asa Newell's kind of a different tier because he's like a firm lottery pick, but he's from Georgia, big. Then you have Khaman Maluach from Duke, Derik Queen from Maryland. Recently, your guy, Thomas Sorber,
my boy,
from Georgetown. Those are really the ones I get asked about a lot.
Yes.
In recent
days, those are the tier
also,
2 centers for me.
Yeah, and there's been some Danny Wolf in recent days. I'm not just saying that because I'm a Michigan guy. There's been some Danny Wolf buzz, Brian. We'll come back to him later on. But those three guys, Maluach, Queen, and Sorber for real. And then Newell is kind of the high ender, but he's more of a combo big anyway. Anyway, open form. What do you make of these guys? Because they're all different.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because my 13, 14, and 15 happen to be Thomas Sorber, Derik Queen, and Khaman Maluach. So
and there you interesting. And there you have it. No, it's also funny because the Hawks, and I'll get back to you, I promise. But it's like what do you want? Because if you're the Hawks, you might be interested in having an anchor defensive center because you have Trae Young. And they've done a good job this year building around Trae Young on the wings defensively with Dyson and Ricochet and Jalen and all that stuff. But I think the Hawks fans would have kind of a rude awakening if they had a bad defensive center on the court regularly, and they really and they don't right now, and pretty much ever, other than maybe when they play Nance there sometimes. But also, ideally, Brian, they all want the player that can defend and shoot. How about that? There's so many of those guys available, right? No, those guys are hard to find. But anyway, that's my preamble. But
really, the way you're pitching this to me, because Okongwu is going to be there, and I think you can start Okongwu. I don't know if Maluach will even make it as far as the Hawks would be, but that'd be the guy you look for because there's a reason that he's still like one of the top 15 BPM guys among freshmen, despite really having no idea what he's doing offensively. He is a pretty dominant drop big, like defensively. Honestly, I don't think he's much worse than like Klingon. And he's much quicker. Like he moves really well. His defense is like not just his shot block. His shot block is kind of disappointing, although that's Flagg, I think, steals a lot of them. But he's just a very, very good contained movement guy as for 7'2", 250 guy. And he should be able to shoot. Like he's done it a little bit. He's almost like a more advanced, like a just larger and like more advanced frame version of like an Ulrich Chomsky from this year's draft. And Ulrich Chomsky might be good. He's just not going to play this year. Maluach, if he's drafted by the Hawks, will certainly be playing for the Skyhawks a little. But Clint Capella did that. Clint Capella was RGV Vipers regular for his first season.
I was going to say certainly a more long-term play, but also the defensive tools that the Hawks I think might be looking for. Also, all joking aside, they just seem to love Duke players. I mean, there's a connection there, obviously. And Maluach's been playing more recently. I think he actually had his best stat game of the season today, as we're talking. I think he had 19 and 10 in that Notre Dame game, even with Flagg going crazy. But he's been playing more and more, and I think playing better. He is very raw, though. I mean, it is what it is. But defensively, he's the one.
He's very raw, but he's very raw offensively. Like he just doesn't really know. He can't dribble. He does not dribble. Not can't dribble. Does not dribble.
Doesn't. Yeah.
Just a catch and dunk guy. Has no post game whatsoever. So it's been hard for him to kind of find his niche as far as like where is he scoring from. But defensively, his instincts are just good. Like he doesn't really foul a lot. Like he's not a Mobley level or like even like a Kamu level like defensive impact guy. But I really feel like he's about as good as this kind of archetype guy is at defense. Super raw, like Jackson Hazy sort of center. Way better than Jackson Hayes at defense, by the way.
And way bigger also, which
way
matters.
Bigger. 7'2" at least. 240, 250. Just has the frame. Like he's going to be a top 20 pick. He might be a top 10 pick. Like
I think see him by the end. You're going to see
some of these workouts, and
I was going to say by the end, I think he might be. And Newell is definitely this way. Newell's again kind of a different tier, but the Hawks probably won't get their hands on a couple of these guys unless the Kings pick lands in that 13 range, like right there at the end of the lottery. Might have a chance at that, or if the Lakers bottom out, which still could happen. It's still relatively. You get a LeBron injury or something like that, or an AD injury, and
he is 40. Out.
Yes, but at the moment, the Hawks have one pick, and it would be like in the 20 range, and that probably won't be high enough to get a couple of these guys. But hey, there's flexibility. The other two,
maybe you trade for Capella for him,
perhaps.
The last thing about Maluach I want to say is that he is legitimately like the same size Embiid was in college.
And look, I don't always
the skill level is not in the same universe.
No,
but the movement is like he is one of the rare 7'2" guys who can kind of move like that.
Yeah, and like, I don't.
He just has no skill. He has no skill whatsoever right now.
No, and that's okay. I mean, I don't always agree with this, but there is a contingent of particularly Hawks fans who are just itching to have a guy who is a quote unquote true 7-footer because they haven't had a big center in a long time. Clint is 6'10", Okongwu is 6'8.5". Like they don't have a monster.
Larry Nance is
6'8.5". Like he's not a very so there is a I want a true center contingent. I mean, also you know this, Brian. I covered Al Horford for a long time. There are people who still believe Al Horford's a power forward after all these years because he's not 7 feet tall. So if the Hawks could get their hands on a 7-footer, that would placate some people.
If you want a Mark Williams-sized guy, that's your Mark Williams-sized guy.
And Mark Williams is a good. I mean, if you can ever stay healthy,
Mark Williams is good. Yeah,
he's pretty good. If you can get Mark Williams at 14, like sure, that's fine.
Great.
If he can stay on the court.
Yeah.
And also another Duke guy while we're here. So the other two are less of that. So Derik Queen is the guy who people probably knew more about coming into the season. Mm-hmm. I know Thomas Sorber was your guy, has been your guy for a long time. They're back to back for you. Who are they basically?
Queen is already getting Nas Reed comparisons. It's like and they're warranted to some extent. Like he's just a super touch scorer. He's always been a good ball handler for a legitimate 6'10", like 250 guy. Great like touch, great footwork around the basket. He just puts a lot of pressure on. It's Kelly Olynyk sort of thing of like, this guy can actually dribble, and he's big. You can't just let him do it because he will score on you. Probably the best post scorer in this class as far as like touch and like footwork guy. Can shoot a little bit, can handle a little bit. His real issue is as good as his footwork is going towards the basket, backpedaling, he's horrendous. Like he's not a center defensively in the same way that Nas Reed isn't.
Yeah, his defense is not. I've tried to watch more of him because people are asking about him. His defense is really not inspiring me. I have to say
it's not. It's like bad. Yeah. Honestly, the guy he kind of reminds me of is almost like if Boogie Cousins was undersized, which is like
I kind of get that
because he has that same sort of like his hands are huge. He can manipulate the ball around. He can shoot little like push shots on people. He has that same way where Boogie had Boogie if when he got going. He was Jokic before Jokic, where it was like he's gonna put 35 on you. You can't do anything about it.
Oh, there's a reason why he was a all NBA talent. for sure. But
Yeah.
Cousins,
Like
offensively,
like a hooper center is what I'm trying to say. Like Derek Queen is a hooper center in this. Like he will put buckets on you. He's the guy at the rec league
putting up big numbers on a real team.
Yeah.
Maryland's a real team in a real
Yeah.
conference, and he's putting up big numbers at 19 years old. Like, they can't fake that, I don't think.
He's the 35-year-old overweight guy at the rec league he's just dropping floaters on you and like step backs and all this stuff. He's me. That's what I was getting at. But yeah, my only real concern, like he's a very talented player. I think he might be more like a Bobby Portis type because the defense is just not tenable at center. And so it's like, where does he play? And like,
if he does play the Bobby Portis kind of role, you hope he can shoot. Because right now, like I don't think he can't shoot, but he's not like a proven shooter.
He's not a movement shooter.
Yeah, it'd be easier for him to be in that like hybrid big role if he could shoot. I don't know if that will happen or not.
Yeah.
I think he's a first round pick for sure. It's just I think in particular for Atlanta, it's a harder sell for me just because of the defense. It's not that he can't play. It's just that with what they think they probably need, I wouldn't love it necessarily. But he'd be an appropriate pick for them in the top 20. Like it's not crazy at all.
Absolutely a top 20 pick. Yeah.
Today's show is brought to you by Wayfair. After the holiday hustle, there's nothing like making your home a little TLC. I always find that decluttering and refreshing my space helps you get back to your routine that you actually need to get into to start the year. Whether you're tidying up, clearing out, or just want to give your space a new look and start the year, Wayfair has everything you actually need, all within your budget. Recently, I picked out some stunning spring stuff and cozy seating from Wayfair, and the huge selection makes it easy to find pieces that actually fit into my style and budget. My favorite part, though, is the free and hassle-free delivery, even for the big and larger items. The new additions to my space have actually made a huge difference. They feel fresh, inviting, and totally me. Plus, Wayfair's site was also easy to navigate, so I found everything that I needed in absolutely no time. There's something for style in every home, no matter what your space and budget happens to be, and they make it easier as well to tackle your New Year's home goals with endless inspiration for your space. And really, it's just an awesome experience across the board. Give your home the refresh it absolutely needs right now with the folks at Wayfair. And the place to go is wayfair.com and do so right now. That is Wayfair, wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. So I teased it already, but Sorber's your guy, and I think people are catching up to you on this one. You've been high on this the whole time. We're in this group chat together. You've been you've been preaching to everyone about Thomas Sorber for weeks.
It's not even so much that I think he's roughly as good as these two bigs. It was just always strange to me that these guys were getting top 10 buzz and he wasn't even on like Tankathon. And it's like he's Georgetown. Like Georgetown.
I think he this week he crashed the party out. I don't know where ESPN. I think Sam had him like 17th in a mock draft, something like that. So he's not gotten there. He's not gotten there to where you. I think where you had him.
He is okay. If he was 6'11", I would have him probably 4 or 5. If I thought he was like that big, he's 6'9.5", 6'10". He's more or less Wendell Carter Jr. size, and he more or less is Wendell Carter to me.
And Wendell Carter is very good, by the way. Wendell Carter is a good player.
Strong, like just buff, huge kid. It just finishes. He scores everything he touches in the paint. Can pass. Is like a legit shot blocker, like a rotational guy. And physically, I think he has some issues like gathering. He has a little bit of that James Wiseman thing where he's not always like explosive off the ground, but he's just the build is ready for the NBA. The ability to take screens, the ability to set screens, the ability to disrupt screens, get his hands out. I don't know what his wingspan is. I'm guessing it's 7'2"-ish, 7'3". Yeah, it just looks like a guy who could start in the NBA to me, like pretty easily. Wendell's a comparison. There's a little bit of Greg Monroe in there, not just because of where he played, but a little bit of that, like, he's, like I said, he's not super explosive, but he seems to just have, he's very, there's a deliberate, like he's very deliberate in a way that a lot of freshman bigs aren't. Queen is like this too, to an extent, but a lot of freshman bigs panic when they get the ball around the rim. They just throw the ball up. And Sorber he'll gather, he'll put his dribble down, he'll put his shoulder into a guy, he'll get his 2 feet set, then he'll go up. And it's like, Greg Monroe was the king of that. Greg Monroe he was shooting when he wanted to shoot when he was ready. You weren't rushing him. Yeah. Al Jefferson was like that too. I don't think he's as good as those guys. He's not as wide as either of those guys. But like, he's like a Wendell if you cranked up his post scoring a notch and cranked down his like side to side speed, I guess. So Wendell is a guy he reminds me of a little, sort of like Rob Williams, like now current Rob, not like super explosive Rob. But
yeah, injury reduced Rob Williams. Yeah,
he's still pretty good. Honestly, maybe a little Hartenstein. I don't know if he's as big, but Hartenstein's not like gigantic. He's just really smart and really strong.
I can see that.
Yeah. Sorber's smart, strong, and skilled.
And I like his defense a lot more than I like
very good
Queen's defense. I think that it makes sense to me totally that they'd be close together on a board. I tend to lean towards his archetype versus Queen's.
I do
because of the defense though. It's not even about Queen not being good. Like I think Queen's a good player. It's just I like the defensive stuff better. He's not, but he is not a 7-footer like you said. He's not a full size center size.
6'10", 250 is generally what he's listed at, and I believe the 250. I don't know if I believe the 6'10".
Well, yeah, I mean, and by the way, you can play center at that size. It's just that you're not 7'1". And there is
Al Horford has for 20 years.
Correct. You said it, not me, Brian. That was Brian that said that. That was not me preaching about Al Horford being a great NBA center. I know the guy was that Vicini comped him to Xavier Tillman, which I know speaks to you as a Xavier Tillman guy.
Well, so the difference is Xavier Tillman is 6'7".
Yes, I know. I mean, he's bigger, but I mean, just like the way they play though, like the profile defensively, like Tillman as a college player. By the way, Tillman was 4 years older probably than Sorber was right now. Tillman was
adult man.
So
he was 4.
Sorber doing this as a freshman is a pretty notable
distinction. Yeah, Sorber just turned 19, by the way.
Yeah,
so he's slightly younger than average. December 2005 birthday. So,
do you have
Queen is a December 2004 birthday, full year older.
Oh, that's interesting. Actually, I did not realize that. Do you have a center that's not one of those guys that you think is a potential first round pick?
See, the thing is, it's just saying center is the problem.
Or
Asa Newell,
you could say big.
We could talk about.
Yeah. I mean, Asa Newell is definitely a lottery pick. It seems like.
Yeah, just an awesome, super active, super like big Taj Gibson. I guess like 6'11" Taj Gibson is what Asa Newell is, which is awesome. Because the only other guys I have in this first round tier, who I list as bigs, are Colin Murray Boyles from South Carolina, who is 6'7". Yeah. And one of my favorite players in this draft, my guy Rasheer Fleming from St. Joseph's, who is a monster. Tari Eason vibes for Mr. Fleming. And I'd say that when I first saw somebody say that, I was offended. And then I watched more of him and looked at his numbers, and I was like, okay. 4.9 block rate, 3.3 steal rate, 44% from 3, 24.1 defensive rebound rate, which is dominant, 67 true shooting. And he had a great game against Texas. He's had great games against a good competition. He is just athletically really strong, and the shot has come around. He's just a really polished combo 4-5 guy. I have him 20, I think. Like, it's just this guy will play. This guy will be the Tari Eason or the what's his name? The like a Chris Boucher type almost. Like I'm trying to think of a guy from a different draft. Hold on, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I mean, and while you're filling that in, I think I'm reading now that Fleming might have a 7'4" wingspan.
It's pretty big, yeah.
That's true. That's
pretty impressive.
That's pretty monstrous for a forward. He's not a center, but real forward size. Great stock numbers. Yeah, I'm in. I think I've only seen him play once, but I'm sold.
He's very good. What am I thinking of?
I'm gonna while you think about that. Someone asked me today, actually, in a chat about Janai Broom as an NBA
Isaiah
player.
Jackson. Isaiah Jackson is what I was thinking of.
Is Janai Broom a real NBA prospect?
I think so. Yeah.
Someone asked me about him today. I like it. He actually got hurt today, unfortunately.
Yeah, he should be okay. Didn't look too horrible.
And he is like a National Player of the Year candidate, which is relevant at Auburn, but not like a prospect that seemed that way. But that's why he's a famous. Well, he's getting more famous as a college player because he's played awesome this year. He's
playing on probably the best team in the country, and he's the best player.
Yeah,
I think so. Just because, 3 years ago, 2-3 years ago, he couldn't shoot, and now he's like a knockdown guy. Like he's if you leave him open, he will hit you. He will threes on you, and like that makes him like the Bobby Portis type, like instant offense, like scoring big. Yeah, Janai's really good. He's either going to play 8 years as like a backup, like a Bobby Portis type, or he's going to go like to Serie A and dominate. So
yeah, I mean, I think he'll probably end up going late first, early second in the draft.
Yeah, it's fine.
Real prospect player. probably not someone I'm going to have the Hawks taking or wanting to take when they get there, but I like him.
The only other guys I have in the first round as centers, I still have Rocco Zakarsky there. He's had a not very great year, but he's huge. Huge Australian guy, 7'2", 245.
He's playing in the NBA.
Enormous guy. Yeah, moves really well. It's just he's had a year where he looks exactly the same. We mentioned Danny Wolf, the Michigan guy, another kind of like Queen, can actually handle.
Yeah, I mean, Danny Wolf's offense is like extremely exciting for a guy who's legitimately 7 feet tall. I don't know if he can anchor defense, but hey. Like I know he probably can't anchor defense, but hey,
no, he almost certainly can't.
He also is a Ivy League transfer, which is
exciting.
An Ivy League transfer being a real guy at the college at the Michigan level is interesting. Yep. I love guys who college wise
could be centers. Maxime Reynaud from Stanford, who people may remember most as, dude. I'm sure you remember this. There was a video of Wembanyama and Gobert playing each other a few years ago. At like a practice, and it was Gobert and Vincent Poirier on one side. It was Wembanyama and Maxime Reynaud on the other side. He's played 4 years at Stanford and is just a monster shooter for a 7 foot, like crazy shooter. Like he could be Luke Cornett, like just really monstrously good, like spot up, standstill shooter for a center. JT Toppin at Texas Tech is kind of a big. He's just like super, I don't know, Faridi. Then my guy, Yaxel Lendeborg at UAB, who is one of the best defensive players in the country. He's just 6'8.5", 240. So but long arms and just an excellent, like, I'm a big, like, maybe this is my past as a Tibbs era Bulls fan come up, but like the Taj Gibson style, like guy who ices the pick and roll, just blows it up is my favorite kind of center. And boy, Yaxel loves doing that. He just crushes people on switches. He hunts guards. He's awesome. Definitely a second round guy who I think will stick in the NBA the same way that like I thought Freddie Gillespie was going to stick.
he did.
That's kind of it for me. I guess the Ivicic twins are both on the radar.
I think like is Kalkbrenner draftable? Not first round, but like I think he's like
Colin Castleton wasn't. That's the only reason I say no.
But Castleton should have been drafted though. Like he was drafted.
Yeah. I think Kalkbrenner will end up on an NBA roster. Like he's a good shot blocker. He's just a good like emergency big, basically. Like can this guy come in and be fine?
Legit 7 foot or two. Like it has real size. And all right, we don't have to do all centers. That's just it's a topic.
Those are the guys. I do want to mention the Ivicic twins are the only other ones I could see moving up. Tomislav plays at Illinois and is a left-handed player. I know that. And was kind of considered the back to the basket guy, but he's become like a real good Vucevic style, like pick and pop shooter. Mm-hmm. And then Zvonimir was the one who was more of a prospect beforehand, played at Kentucky with Calipari, followed in Arkansas, is a little bit bigger and right-handed. And he definitely has the better highlight tape. Like he has really impressive shot blocking and really impressive 3-point shooting. And I like blocks and threes guys, but at the game to game, he has way too many like 1 for 8, 4-point, 2 rebound games as a starting center in the SEC. And it's like, you gotta play more physically, my guy. Like, I don't know how to, whereas Tomislav is much more like 13 and 8, like competent starting center stuff. So those guys are both on the radar for sure. I wouldn't be stunned if either went late first, because I think they both have that talent, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they both went back to school because they're both sophomores. So
Today's show is brought to you by GameTime. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. And one of my favorite memories in recent days was actually going to a concert. The energy and excitement of that venue really made it awesome to be there in person. And now GameTime has actually made it easier to get tickets for favorite events with their feature. It's GameTime Picks. The feature actually filters out all of the fluff that you don't want and shows you incredible deals on great seats. No wasted time searching through thousands of tickets that you actually don't want. Recently, I actually looked for tickets for a football game using the GameTime app. And with GameTime Picks, the experience was awesome. I found amazing deals. I could even see the views from the venue before actually buying those seats. The super deal is also particularly impressive, offering great seats at unbeatable prices, plus the app's all-in pricing. Shows the total cost up front, so there are no surprise fees at the checkout process. Take all the guesswork out of buying tickets right now with the folks at the GameTime app. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, use that code. It's LOCKEDONNBA after you create an account at GameTime, and that code, one more time, is LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download the GameTime app today. What time is it? It's game time. Today's show is brought to you by Hungryroot. When it comes to grocery shopping and meal planning, I've had an ongoing problem for quite some time. I just have no time, honestly. I'm very, very busy recording this podcast with my daily life across the board, family stuff, etc. Between work, life, and trying to eat healthier, I was constantly feeling stressed out. I go to the store, buy things I actually didn't need, and end up with no time to actually cook them. And my health goals were also a struggle, to be sure. And everything changed, though, when I discovered Hungryroot. Honestly, it's been a game changer for me and many others in this space as well. It's the easiest way to eat healthy without all the stress. With Hungryroot, it's like having a personal shopper and nutritionist all in one. I take care of my grocery shopping, recommended meals, and groceries based on my taste and health goals. Plus, they have all kinds of high-protein options, gluten-free options, and much more. And the best part is that every meal is ready in 15 minutes or less. 15 minutes or less. I'm talking quick, healthy meals that actually taste good. Honestly, they taste great. And they're all delivered directly to my door. It's been a huge time saver. It's made healthy eating so much simpler and better for me. You're going to love Hungryroot as much as I do. Check them out right now for a limited time. 40% off your first box and a free item in each box for life. And the place to go is hungryroot.com/lockedonnba and use that code. It's lockedonnba. When you get there, that's the place to go. It's hungryroot.com/lockedonnba. That code is LOCKEDONNBA, 40% off your first box and a free item of choice for life. Hungryroot.com/LOCKEDONNBA. Use that code LOCKEDONNBA and don't miss out on this right now. Check it out now at hungryroot.com/lockedonnba. Before we get out of here, I do want to ask you about like that. Generally, that range the Hawks are probably going to be in, not definitely, but probably mid first round. You know, late lottery to like early 20s. People ask me like, how's that group, how's that tier compared to like other years? It's hard to say that at this point. I would say maybe you disagree with me. But there are guys that I seem to like some of these guys are going to go higher, some of these guys will go lower. But for instance, I really like Khaman. Like,
yep, I knew you were going to say Khan.
I've been on Khaman, for instance.
He is almost the archetypical 15th pick in a draft to me, which sounds like an insult, but like no,
that's
he's
why
good.
I brought him up. Like he's right in that range.
Yeah.
And just he's a Duke. Obviously not going to get a lot of attention compared to Cooper and even Maluach for Hawks fans. But Khan's been good. He's a real shooter. Like I don't know, 6'7" wing.
He's big. He's like at least 6'6". Yeah, he's like he has real size.
And the Hawks
he's pretty simple.
You can't have too many wings. The Hawks need more shooting on their roster, et cetera, et cetera. So, like, I mean, it's very broad on purpose, but I like him.
He's a pretty simple. He's a very simple like evaluation. Can he actually shoot? Yes. Is he like playable otherwise? Yeah, he's fine. Like his defense is fine. He's a closeout attacker guy. Like he has a little bit of bounce. He's not like notably weak. He should be fine. He should step right in the NBA and be there for a while. And that is a perfectly reasonable player to take in the middle of the first round in a draft.
I would agree. You mentioned him earlier. He's probably the highest non-freshman, and that's Colin Murray Boyles. I know you have him higher than this, but he seems to be somewhere in that like mid first round range for a lot of mainstream people. He's in South Carolina. Really good player. I love the defense, but what do you think? Because again, do you have anybody higher than him that's returning? I don't think you do. Non-freshman.
No.
I think he's probably the guy at the end of last cycle. I think we might have said something on the show that he was probably the highest rated guy that came back even then, and he's kind of stuck that high. It seems like it to me.
He hasn't really shown. He's not a shooter. He's not like he is what he is. Kind of. I feel like.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's really weird. This will really endear him to you. He really kind of looks like Paul Millsap sometimes.
Well, I swear I knew you were going to say that, and I didn't know that for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, the profile is interesting. Like he's 6'7". He's
245. He's listed at. He's at least 240.
Really,
he's big.
Really big and strong. Really good rebounder. Really good defender. He's just always been a productive, really good player in a really good league.
Super productive scorer, like really good post scorer, like legitimately good at it.
He just doesn't. It's not that he can't shoot. He just doesn't shoot threes. I think he's taking like 15 all year.
Yeah,
he's taking one a game with that.
it's weird because I'm not making the Draymond comparison, but he's the only guy who kind of physically looks like Draymond who's gotten that comparison. That's the important thing with the Draymond comparison is you give it to a guy like Tillman or Grant Williams, and it's like those guys don't look like that.
No,
like they just don't look. They don't have the build that Draymond has, and Colorado Bowles does have that build. Like, yeah. Like if you went into NBA 2K and you were making him, not that I have done this, you would give him like the Draymond build. Like that's so. I don't think he won't be Draymond because he's not that kind of passer or handler. But I think defensively he does have that same just ability to get under people and like just out leverage the shit out of everybody. He does it to everybody, and he's been doing it in the SEC for 2 years. And like the touch is legit. I don't see why he can't start in the NBA, other than the fact that he doesn't shoot at all for a 6'7" guy. But
yeah, and he probably is the right situation. He's a guy where you probably want to have a shooting big, like a shooting center, for spacing reasons, if possible, which is not what the Hawks have. But no, I think he's just a good basketball player, who I particularly enjoy. So I wanted to bring him up.
He's very enjoyable.
Yeah. I mean, another guy that I think is probably going to go higher than this, but Liam McNeely has been really interesting at UConn.
He's been hurt lately.
Yeah, he's been banged up recently, but like I think he looked good early. The shooting is legit. He is at least he's got wing size defensively. Like
he's 4 sized. He's 6'7", 225. Like,
I'll take it. So yeah, I mean, look, it's inexact right now.
Bigger
so
than
early.
Luke Kennard, so
yeah, it's so early that like it's hard to figure out who's going to actually slide. Because look, I'm not crossing off like smaller guards, but the Hawks probably aren't going to be like prioritizing smaller guards. Like,
no,
we haven't brought up LeBaron Philon. We haven't brought up Jeremiah Fears.
My son LeBaron Philon.
Nolan Traore, like guys that are probably top 20 picks that have not been Boogie Flan that are the Hawks. It's not that the Hawks can't possibly take a small guard. It's just they brought up Jace Richardson, Jace Richardson's son, who's at Michigan State, been playing well this year. Yep. Those guys are all 6'4" and shorter. And not that the Hawks aren't crossing them off. It's just that they're not likely to take them, I don't think. Yeah. Maybe if they were to move on from Buffkin, they would consider it more, which they could do at this point. That's possible after 2 years. Kobe's just been hurt, unfortunately. Brian, our guy, has been hurt. It is what it is. And they have Dyson, too, who's not a point guard, but Dyson is a guy they love for obvious reasons. Defensively, he's awesome, etc. Oh, also, like Cam Jones, different kind of player, but has been awesome at Marquette, like All-American awesome.
Pocket scorer.
Yeah, just a bucket getter. I don't know. Like, it's funny. Right now, the Hawks kind of need a bucket getter, which is funny when you have a team like Trae Young that has Trae Young. They just don't have anybody else that does that. Maybe Bogey if he gets his legs together. But
he just
use someone like that.
Yeah, it's weird that they kind of transitioned into being like. Now I think of them really as like a defense and running team. Like, it's weird.
I mean, that's what they are. I mean, that's what they've been playing number 2 pace in the league, I think, so far this season. And when you play Trae with 4 guys, none of whom can shoot it at a high level, it's like you have to get stops and run. And obviously his passing makes it all work. And hopefully Ricochet will make shots at some point. But that's what they are. And then you go to the bench and it's not that.
All things are possible through Jalen Johnson is what I'm saying.
Well, Jalen Johnson has been quite good this year, as I know you've seen. But no, I'm intrigued. Like when I had you come back on, and if you're willing, presumably you are, to do more draft stuff, we'll know more about where they are, where they're picking, all those things. Post deadline, like what the roster looks like. Maybe they trade somebody in the meantime. But I wanted to get a kind of a mid-season, like mid-season check-in.
Somebody whose name starts with a C, and their last name also starts with a C.
They could trade Clint. The thing is with that is that like long term, they got to figure out center. I've been preaching this for a long time. They're not married to Okongwu as like the only guy at center anymore. That ship is kind of sailed.
As much as I like Onyeka, I think that's the right way to use him.
It has to be now. Like, look, when you're in year 5, and I still like Okongwu, but you're in year 5 and you've not forced your way into that conversation. Like that's what you are. I think you're part of a tandem at center. You're not going to be like the guy at center, and it's fine. It makes sense. He's also on a good contract for that role. He's making $15 million a year. That's fine. But he and Clint aren't the best fit in the world either. So maybe it's Maluach. Maybe that's what they do. Maybe they go Duke again for the 17th consecutive year in the draft, and they draft Maluach, and it's all a thing that happens. Before we get out of here, I know this is dangerous to ask you. Do you have a sleeper that's not popped yet that you love? Like even if
Not
it's second
really.
round?
This has been a draft that's so strong that I'm not really like. There's not a lot of guys. I also feel like maybe this is me getting old, but there's not a lot. There's not really a Brandon Clark style guy anymore where like the mainstream just doesn't pick up on them.
It is much harder than it used to be to find those guys. Yes.
I guess maybe Flory Badunga, but I don't know if he's going to go.
Yeah, I could see that.
I still like Joe Tugler at Houston, but I don't know if he's even like an under the radar guy at this point. He's got like a 15 block rate. So,
ooh, well, yeah, I think he. I'm looking at Sam and ESPN as we're talking. Yeah, Sam had him 32nd in his mock draft. So
yeah, so I don't know if Flory's going to go or not. Maybe Isaiah Evans at Duke is kind of under the radar guy, like actually under the radar because people just don't watch him. He looks really good. He looks like he could go in the first at some point. He just doesn't.
Drake Powell is kind of
I still like Drake Powell
showing some stuff.
Drake Powell's problem is that he plays on a team that has Ian Jackson and RJ Davis and Elliot Cadeau, so he just does not get the ball.
Yeah, I mean, Kobe Brea is like a one skill player that I tend to like.
24.
He's 100 years old. Yeah, I was going to say that.
Yeah. I'm trying to think now. Let me look at my list.
Someone will pop that you end up liking because then I know you. You'll find your guy. I
think Chaz Lanier might be like a top 30 player. Miles Bird is good. Joe Sainon. Oh, Jalen Lowe. I'm not sure how much worse he is than like the Boogie Fland guys.
He's from Pittsburgh.
The Pittsburgh point guard. Yeah. The other freshman point guard at Pittsburgh last year with Bub. He's been like
tough steam. You come in the same class as Bub Carrington at Pittsburgh. Not even like Duke or something. You're like the other guy at Pittsburgh with a lottery pick point guard.
Well, they're a better team this year. They're gonna make the tournament. And Lowe has been like he's a really good perimeter defender, and he has the layup gene. Some guys have it. I don't. Gene is the weird word to use. I know it's like a kind of a eugenics word, literally. But like he has. It's what I've been saying with Shea for the longest time. It's why I don't abide any Shea comparisons. I saw it for Kasparas, and I like Kasparas. No, he doesn't have that. Like Kasparas finishes layups like at a normal rate, like pretty good. If he's open, if he gets to the rim, he finishes it. He does not have the weird contortion, the layup gene. Not that many guys have it.
This is actually a great point by you because Kyrie is the other one, right? Like Kyrie's like ridiculous like angles, the stuff you can shoot from, and the spin on the ball and these things that like you either have that or you don't. Like you can kind of get better at it in some ways, but like when your Shea is like ridiculous at that.
Brunson has another version of that where it's just like he's going to hit everything.
He is the old man. He is the old man version of that. I think he is the old man, the Y version. But no, I think that's the one thing about Shea. Not to talk about Shea at the hour mark of this podcast, but like you can't fake the ability to make every kind of finish that he does. Like he isn't even the best athlete. He's a good athlete, obviously, but like he just makes every single one of these weird drives, and we drive all the time.
I don't think Jalen Lowe is that level.
No, because nobody is, but
he's really good at it. Let me get his exact before I get off. His exact finishing numbers. They were crazy last time I looked at them.
I'm filing this away now on my deep in my brain that has to write about the draft at some point. Sign me up for that.
Okay, he's listed at 50% at the rim this year. I think he's on a bad stretch, but he at one point I know he was in the 70s at like as like a 6'2", 6'3" little guard doing crazy finishes. Yeah, I don't know. I like him a lot. I have him like low 30s. Him and Taman Lipsy are like the little guards that I believe in the second.
Oh, that reminds me. Do you still like Milan from Taman Lipsy's teammate at Iowa State? Are you still on Milan?
Yeah, I mean, he's
Island?
Good. Okay. No, he's late first round pick. Like he's 6'8" and can shoot.
I know you liked him last year. So
yeah, let me look. I'm just looking through my guards. The problem is you get to so many little guards that it's hard to like.
And as we've discussed many times on this podcast the last couple of years, little guards are having a hard time in the NBA these days.
I do like Silas Demery from Georgia. I don't know if this is his year, but I do like him. Rob McCray from Jacksonville. I'm just going through like my tier 4 guys. Bruce Thornton, my guy, putting it on for the Fat Boys.
We love Bruce Thornton.
There's not that many Sharon Collins sized guards in college anymore.
Oh,
and
wow. That is a deep cut for you at the hour 5 mark.
I got a guy 6'2", 215. It's like my exact size. I love you, Bruce. Bruce is awesome. Yeah, I don't know. Like Junie Mobley's good. It's a pretty good guard class, but getting into like for me, a lot of the under the radar guys are just like, I don't know if this guy's big enough, and that's always tough.
I have a feeling you will find a guy or two in the next 2 months that you will plant your flag on late in the draft, 2nd round picks or whatever.
I don't know. Yeah,
you'll
find guys. I like Jalen Moore. I still like Darian Williams. I like Dalen Swain, Solo Washington, like all these guys. But these guys also have their fans.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. There are just more eyeballs in this stuff than there were before, and that's what happens. All right, Brian. Well, thank you for doing this, taking the time here in mid-January on a weekend to talk to me. Where can folks find all your
12
work?
degrees out, so patreon.com/BrianJMBA. I'm not doing as many profile things because I'm honestly just trying to maintain my sanity and not overwork myself.
But there's stuff on there. I'm Patreon. There's content on there.
Well, honestly, it's
capsule board, mock drafts, all this kind of stuff that you have.
The capsule board is out. It's not anywhere near done, but I have it out. You can follow along with it. I think I still have my database up on there. If not, I'll put it up soon. Just you can look at the guys I have, which is it's like 900 guys at this point. The thing that really killed me off 2 years ago was I spent probably 20 to 30 work hours, like not even work. This is my hobby. 20 to 30 hours watching every Filipowski game 2 years ago and writing up like probably 900 words on the thing. And then the next day he went back to school. So I've been like trying very hard to not have that happen. So I really I have notes, but I'm keeping the notes kind of private. And then when guys are like finalizing in is when I'm going to start like actually pouring that stuff in. But most people are not going to really be caring about in-depth breakdowns of the 35th guy in a draft until May. So I'm not caring as much about being first on guys anymore. I'm just caring about running myself into the ground.
It doesn't matter that much to be first. At the end of the day, what's that actually mean to be first? It is what it is.
Yeah.
So, check out Brian's work there. I'm a patron, as I already said, and people should be checking out all of that. I know there's a lot of Hawks draft people that want to know stuff, and I'm like, hey, I'll have Brian on, and you can listen to Brian and other people that know this stuff more than I do. I will do my draft work. I do more than most people do, but I don't know as much as Brian or Ben Pfeiffer or anybody else.
I don't know if anyone knows as much as Ben.
I like the draft a lot, but not like you guys.
Ben is a machine.
I have experts on. I'm sure Ben will be on fairly soon because that's what happens. Ben likes to come on the podcast too. But yeah, anyway, thank you, Brian. I appreciate it, my friend. Follow Brian's work. As for everybody else, please subscribe to this podcast anywhere you find your podcast, and we'll see you all next time.